Hi guys, this is Sarah Colata with Architecture Talk Tank. I have an exciting guest today with me, Francesco Spaggiari. We met on LinkedIn actually with Francesco, and I saw that Francesco is writing a blog, and I got really inspired and interested in his content. He's an Italian architect who had worked for a practice and then turned entrepreneur, and then he will tell you the story himself, but he diverted from architecture, working in marketing and business development. And today he's here with us to tell us about that path and the lessons he learned alongside the way. So Francesco, thank you so much for joining me today for the talk.
Thanks a lot to you, Sam.
Excellent. So Francesco,
Good to be here with you.
Amazing. Sorry, the connection just broke, so I started talking alongside to you. I find your story really interesting, and I think that there is a lot of architects can refer to it and relate to it in some way. Of course, it really touches like deeper rooted problems, and I hope that we can discuss that over the talk today. But let's begin with the very beginnings of everything. So tell us, about your journey as an architect and why and what happened exactly that you switched to marketing in the first place.
I consider myself an architect, but to be honest, actually I studying engineering, architectural engineering. That was a course, let's say, faculty in Italy, pretty new one at the time. And the scope of this course was to, let's say, harmonize the two figures, the two professionals, the architect and the engineer. A lot of my colleagues have been very successful, being some of them architects and some of them, let's say, engineer. I have to say that already from the beginning, I came out of this course studies pretty confused. I didn't know exactly if I was an architect or an engineer or whatever. And probably, these things came with me along all my paths. And now I keep on working in the field of architecture, but with a different, I took a different way. And you said a few things about me. I'll jump quickly to my first experience. I started working in an office in Milan. It was an amazing experience. We work on important project. I spent night working with my colleagues at fantastic project, arena in Sochi for the Olympic game. So I believe that many architects, many of us, have been lucky to work on a fantastic project when they were young. And then suddenly, as I believe many of us, especially in Italy, probably, I am Italian, of course, as you said, I felt that it was not enough because, I was happy to work on these great things, but the money in my pocket were not much. So I was young, I decided to open my own firm. And it was a great idea at the time. I'm not saying that is the right things to do at all, but for me, it totally changed my approach to life. And I believe what I'm doing now, good, I'm doing because of the difficulties that I passed through in that moment. I have a metaphor. This morning before our talk, I just thought about that period, and I remember that especially during the first year while I was doing the architect by myself, I used to feel very excited. I used to feel like a lion that is into the wild, in the forest. Before, probably while working with the boss, I was like a lion, but in the zoo. So yes, I used to have my salary, but I could not really do what I want. In the wild, I really enjoyed. I was young. I could see possibilities. I could see other aspect of the business as an architect, technical, but I mean creativity, but also the business development side as an entrepreneur. But the lion in the wild enjoys when the season is good. When the season is bad, he has to start eating whatever he finds, and he can struggle. Maybe there's no water. You need to you need to drink from almost oil poisoned one, let's say, and can get close to die. And to be honest, remembering that period, I feel that in a certain moment, I was close to die professionally because of the difficulties I was finding. I'm talking too much, probably. I don't know, Sarah.
Not at all.
Go ahead.
Actually, I am really enjoying this because I had a very similar situation.
Okay.
I often talk, about when I was running a charity, and honestly, starting your own business, especially in the charity field where
Wow.
the money comes from fundraising. It was really hard, and I did take on people as well. I don't know if you employed people at the
Yeah.
time, but the responsibility that you feel for another being every month when you have to pay a salary, and when you're not able to
Absolutely.
make your ends meet, is really, really difficult.
Yeah.
And it adds on to this this horrible feeling of inadequacy, I would say. So I really like your metaphor, and keep going. what did you
Yeah. Yeah.
what did you decide to do at that moment? What happened?
Yeah. I had, let's say, a huge problem with the project. Could have been a fantastic project for me that could have launched me, let's say, my mind in the paradise of the great architects. That project became for me a nightmare, let's say, and even with a nightmare client, let's say. And I was so frustrated that I decided to change. I literally decided to change my path. Um, at the time, I was working close to the ceramic field in my area. It's like the mecca of the ceramic tiles. Hundreds of the best companies in the world. And I was designing some booths, some showroom for them. And I thought that could have been a way for me to have a more, let's say, calm job. And mm, and so I asked. It was bad period in Italy. It was 2014. It was probably one of the highest point of the economical crisis. And I got rejected by all the ceramic tiles. I knocked the door. Then life is surprising. Long story. By the way, I had a client for which I did a really small things, really small booths for an exhibition in South. We had a good talk during an exhibition in Italy, and I asked him, is there any possibility with you? And he said, yeah, I need an art director. Hey, wow, here I am. Let's go to Saudi Arabia. And so this is a second part of my life. I spent 4 years and a half in Saudi Arabia. That is totally a different place than what we imagine in Europe. To describe Saudi Arabia, I would take into this description, but is a place that is totally different than what we expect, with really fantastic people, I have to say, that helped me a lot also. Anyway, so in this second part of my career, I was an art director, and immediately after, because it was needed in the factory, also marketing manager. And I was lucky because my general manager was really a good one, really a good entrepreneur. He used to be an entrepreneur himself. He turned to be a manager. He studied in Harvard. So he started pushing me in the marketing, and he asked me to study, not just to invent because So I opened book, and I opened book while I was doing marketing. And I started learning a lot of things that I could have been really useful in my previous adventure as entrepreneur. In Italy, but I believe almost everywhere, architect and engineer don't study anything about business at school, nothing about marketing. And then they start their own adventure, and without tools. What I learned about my studies in marketing while I was working mainly was that everything was already inside me, because as an entrepreneur, I understood the key points to do business. But studying, and I'm not saying studying a lot, just the basic marketing, it gives you a structure. So you know what to do. You have rules, you have a pattern that you can follow in situation. We all know we have a good client that comes often, a client that comes sometimes, and clients that are marketing describes these categories, categorize the client. So, for example, the one that only comes sometimes are considered, let's say, butterflies. And it tells you more or less how to behave with these people. I mean, people have to be taken for what they are. So don't bother someone who will come to you only when he wants. Okay, this is just an example. And one thing that it surprised me a lot when I didn't know anything about marketing. Then I found out that this is a very popular thing among marketers, and very old one, the 4P of marketing, that are product, price, placement, and promotion. So products, it means you need a beautiful product. Price, you need the perfect price for this product. Placement, you have to put this product in the right shelf, in the right showroom, so people can see it. And promotion, you have to advertise it, okay? And it's normal, but when you think about the product and you start analyzing in this way, it's different. It's different. You behave in a different way. Then what struck me, sorry for my English, sometimes I invent some words. Anyway, that the book was saying that if you do these things in a perfect way, the 4Ps, sales is not needed. People will come automatically to you. I said, my God, this is fantastic. I am a shy person. Then my job turned into, let's say, more open person. But basically, I am a shy person. So I said, this is perfect. I can control the client, bring them in without even interacting through the 4P. So let's study very carefully the product, the price, and this and that. And to be honest, it was not working very much. It helped in the factory I used to work, but while I was saying the sales director was bringing clients, important clients, you know, bring them have dinner and this and that, bringing to the table and close deals, big deals. So I said, okay, maybe the 4Ps are a good structure, but they work perfectly just for some business. What I mean, if you are Louis Vuitton, okay, you have the perfect product, perfect price, perfect this, perfect that, people will come to you and will buy the bag. But if you sell, I will show you a mixer, even if it's the most beautiful mixer, one of the most beautiful mixer I've ever seen, it's difficult that people just come to you because it's sort of niche product. And a service like architecture, thinking about my previous experience, unless you are Jean Nouvel, Zaha Hadid, or Renzo Piano, I believe it's very difficult that people will just come to you because of word of mouth and or social media. Yeah, some will come to you, but then they have to put in your hand as an architect big money, big expectation, dreams. The human part of the business in let's say business development or sales, or I believe is key. I understood that is key. What do you think, Sarah, in your experience?
Yeah, actually, you know, I really like having you on talk and listening to this, because I think that a lot of people can really reflect and see themselves in the story. And what I find really interesting is that as you tell your story, you just keep bringing on like the biggest problems that we have in our industry. So the first thing really is the fact that you go to school, you study architecture, engineering, whatever it is. I went to a really good school in London, and I also came out of it completely confused. I mean, if you think
Okay.
about it, it's like I ended up taking a path of like working within sustainability in architecture and basically working with natural materials. But honestly, I have never heard about this at school. Like we were so starstruck. We always just studied like Rem Koolhaas and Zaha, and you know, we
Yeah.
basically were just next to the AA. So whenever there were like prominent architects coming to give talks there, we would just like go over and listen. And all I knew about architecture is that like that big vision and like megalomaniac idea of where to go and like how you got to behave and what is the success path, which to be honest, because you don't study business, you don't really understand how to get there. So all you see is just results of someone's achievements. So, okay, well, they're famous because they are published everywhere. They're famous because they published a book. They're famous because they finished a really good school. They're famous because they get like really grand projects, and mainly through competitions. So we are basically just bombarded by all these beliefs that are, I'm sorry for the word, but are absolute bullshit. And no one ever sits down with us and tells us, hey, look, this isn't really how the reality looks like. It's just what we gather as we study architecture, feeling like we need to be like these people, but we never really quite have the insight of what it took for them to actually achieve success. It could be that they had a big investor at the beginning, like Zaha did, who built her first project before she even was recognized ever. And like, how many of us have that opportunity and that privilege? So we just see the outcomes of their success, and we think that we have to do all those things to get there. But in the process, having no business acumen and working really, really hard, because at the university we work hard and we have sleepless nights, we take part in crits, we take part in competitions, and then throughout the career we do the same. And actually, to what I see now after like 10 years of practicing, and obviously even more so studying, so being in this field for over 10 years, I actually truly think that it's just a recipe for disaster. And I'm not saying here that everybody is hitting a point of a burnout and everybody is feeling unsuccessful. Nobody in architecture can ever achieve that level. But I just think that there is so many thousands and thousands upon thousands of architects around the world, and that we are all walking a path of a vision that is actually not really existent. And we, at some point in life, we have that wake up call, and that usually is a big disappointment. It's like, I didn't realize that if I was going to that school and wanting to design houses and change people's lives and maybe really influence the cities, and because we do amazing utopian projects at school, but then you end up actually working in the office, and for years all you do is just your rhino and CAD drawings like a CAD monkey, without even raising your head above that or making models for days and days and days and days and days, and your creativity is limited to something on AutoCAD. And I think that's just a huge, like, it's tearing apart something inside of us, which speaks for creativity, which speaks for freedom, which speaks for visions, for utopia. Out of a sudden, we're being put in a cubicle to basically end up working 9 to 5. And I think a lot of architects just decide this isn't for me. And then comes the other side of things also with business, which, interestingly enough, you experience too, that responsibility of running a business and trying to actually get the clients in and make the ends meet, pay salaries as well. That can be really tough, especially with no business acumen. So I also had aha moments like that when I went to a marketing class for the first time. And actually, when I started to read about marketing and study that, it was the first time when I realized that I will never be successful in doing business in architecture if I don't take a step back and start studying this. And my mission really related to the charity work, and I wanted to scale this up, but I wasn't able to do so unless I found out how. And in business, those are almost like foundations of business. The concept of scalability is something that you learn almost in the first classes of your business school. What does it mean to scale up? How do you have to think about whatever you do to bring this to 10x of this? But architects, we don't know what we don't know, and I think we globally lack education on this topic. So it's totally normal to have all these big aha moments and then enter that journey that perhaps if we did have the basics of business and marketing, would never have to come to us after 30 or after 40, and would save us so much more time and also set us up for better success. So this is really why I feel that it's so important for architects to take a step back and really learn certain techniques and put their energy into their communication strategy, their marketing strategy, their business strategy. And today also use social media and digital tools to actually also attract leads. You said towards the end of your talk about how you believe, like, you don't believe that making business in architecture is easy. I would disagree with that. I think that if you really understand your niche, if you really understand who your client is, and you are capable of basically empathize with that person, to connect with that person, to understand their needs, and to understand what causes that person to really seek your advice as an expert. Is it because they have no idea about architecture? Is it because they want to build their first house and it puts so much pressure on them, but they're afraid that if they put that project into just anyone's hands, they will lose money over it, they will lose time, maybe things are not going to go accordingly to plan, they don't know who to trust? All of those things are pain points that they feel very deeply, and they feel pressure around it. Sometimes that's exactly the reason why they come through the door and they act a certain way that we feel perhaps is disrespectful to us. But the question really here is, how many of us architects ever think about really what that person feels. We just see them as, a lot of times we see them as these people that are going to give us the project we want to land. Yeah, with them I'm going to build this. And I think that that mentality is exactly what caused me to suffer when I had my architecture firm, because people were coming through the door and I was thinking, oh my God, yeah, they want to build a hotel. I want to build a hotel. This is amazing. So I was jumping on it and I was fighting for that project so much. Like, yeah, I'm going to give you this idea and this idea, and that's going to be amazing. But then I was realizing, for example, that no matter how much money they had for this project, actually they were not valuing the role of an architect on a project at all. They rather saw me as someone who's going to connect them to builders, who's going to connect them to land sellers, because I worked in Guatemala, so we were all very connected. Maybe set them up for a really good deal, like even help them negotiate the price and things like that. But when it came down to it, really, what they were willing to give me for all that work was not worth it at all. And I always was disappointed, like, why do they not appreciate me? But I think that it all was because I was so fixated on, yes, that's going to be my project, that's going to be the thing that is going to get me published somewhere, or that's going to be the thing that's going to set me off from, you know, everybody else. And in the early years of my, you know, 20s, I'm going to build this dream project and everything's going to change. I think, doesn't that sound familiar? I mean, isn't that thought in all of us literally as a main motivator, because of the fact that we are so educated to act that way, you know, by these star architects and things like that? And I'm sure that there are better programs, education programs than others around the world. But I think that this is kind of like a global issue of architecture. And I guess where I'm getting at is that the moment when you start to understand, and like you said as well, there are different type of clients, and
Yeah.
really what is the value that, you know, you are giving in the first place, what problems are you solving, so that you can sell that value based on those problems. And then also to understand the needs of the customer, and not only just, you know, present yourself as an architect who provides plans, but kind of see what are the problems I'm solving for you, because that out of a sudden has more value. And if we will learn to sell our product and our services that way, I think that that could be really revolutionary. But it means to completely revolutionize your branding, your message, your communication strategy towards the
your
client.
mindset, I think.
Exactly. Absolutely. Your mindset. And so, you know, this is kind of the reason why I'm having these talks, this whole talk show, because I talk with a lot of experts on branding, on communications, and the purpose behind it is because I know that all of those are elements of how you can put together a relevant story of your business towards your customer that will attract better sales and higher quality leads, people that will respect you for who you are, and not just see you as mere commodity. And I think that this is a big topic that we're, you know, slowly touching on with almost every single conversation. And I'm really happy to have you here, share your story, and basically talk about those things, because I think a lot of architects can really relate to it. And, you know, on that note, I wanted to kind of touch upon your writings. So I know that you started writing over Corona, just like me, actually. So welcome to the Corona
Cool.
baby influencer, I don't know, blogger, which is
Fantastic.
amazing. I really think that, you know, a lot of good things will come from that time of isolation
I
as
think
well.
so. I think so.
Definitely. And tell me a little bit more
Sara,
about your writings and inspirations there.
yeah, and I try to match it, by the way, with what we said before. Also because the last step of my career, apart from my passion, that is new passion, that is blogging, is in pure business development, pure sales, and since 2 years. And my clients are architects. It's not sales, it's I mean, I don't sell, it's more working to specification of products for a project, and I work with architects. yeah, there are a lot of things that I like to say, but I have to try to pick the most important one. First of all, yeah, and I work with a very important agency here in Dubai, and I am lucky, and I decided to do this job just because of my boss. My boss is all his life has been in sales. And before making this step into sales, I was very worried because I've never felt as a salesman. I mean, I'm not a salesman. I am a guy who used to spend his night working on a project. I'm not someone who wants to convince people. Okay, I'm not good. Also, my boss always tells me, you are not a good salesman. That's why I chose you. That's why I chose you. That's the point. We think that sale, and most of them are like this. Salesmen are people who want to convince you about a product. Modern sales in this new era with the internet, that you can find everything by yourself in a moment, it's not about persuading people. It's about giving advice, care about people, understanding their needs. So all you architects that you are listening to me, you have these things already. They are already in your body. This is what you do. You care about people. You care that the corridor is not too big. You care that the handles of you care about people. So you are already perfect salespeople for this world. I hope the message is clear. But now I have these architects that are my clients, my friends, and some of them, they are dreaming about opening their own practice. They ask me advice. And I always tell them, I can give you, I could talk a lot, but remember one thing, remember this key point, that is business development. So, or you do it by yourself and you do it constantly, not, okay, today is Saturday, I check, or you decide to do it by yourself, or you hire someone to do it day and night. This is what the big firms are doing. They have department with business development people who's their job. Their job is to, like me now, wake up in the morning, I reply to an email, I make a prospect, I do meeting all day, boom, 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 all day. Not now I make a call, no, all day. It's different, huh? Makes a huge difference. And I tell you, now that I do this job all day, before seeing nice, just nice, not big result, all day, it took me more than 1 year to have some result. Then the snowball start growing because you know more people, you know more, and the snowball become bigger. But this is the message. You have to do it like a hammer. If you don't do it, hire someone to do it. Someone skilled and that you trust. This is very important. And then that's related to what I'm writing in my blog. Another very important things that I want to tell to all the architects. I always, in my blog, I always write, and I haven't yet tell anybody exactly what I mean for it, but I write culture is power. Now I talked a lot about business aspect, marketing, business development, blah, 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 blah. And we know that are key. But never forget how important is all your culture. I mean, you, as an architect, we have eyes, incredible. We notice art, we care about art, about literature, about music, about many things in a different way. And this world sometimes makes you think that is a weak. These things are weak for weak people. Literature, poetry, art is for weak people, people who don't know how to make money, let's say. I don't know if you understand what I mean. I believe yes. And now it's a matter of, yeah, business and stock market and blah, blah, blah. I've always loved to watch and listen interview of great architects. They are the big architects we talked about before. the one that reached that level for several reasons. Maybe they were rich, several reasons. But I can tell you that all of them are incredibly fantastic communicator. I mean, they are superb, not just they know how to communicate. They are superb communicator, and they communicate through their culture, through the culture that you have, the culture of, through metaphor, through to say things that are normal, but in a different way, in a way that goes directly to the heart of their clients, okay? This is, for me, is what means culture is power. It's not a weak thing, it's art. Without art, I mean, it's not, this world would not even worth to live, probably, in my opinion, okay? So don't think it's something weak. Use it. Use all your culture to communicate to your clients. Don't be afraid. I mean, of course, that is subtle. Of course, you will have different kind of clients. You have clients that are that love culture, and you can go higher. You will have clients that are business people. They don't want to talk much about art. But anyway, you are there. You should use your culture to. So in my blog, I mainly analyze this interview from a great architect from the past. I have a lot of picture because I like taking picture to architecture, but not only. And I try to mix and match the words, the thoughts of great architects with what I see in their architecture or even in life in general. And to be honest, I finished. I started this thing with a marketing vision, okay? Because I told you, my clients are architects. So I said, no, I will do this, so they will contact me. Then I said, I have to thank my boss that he told me, Francesco, another key things, this is my boss told me, this is very important. Time is fundamental in life. Time, managing your time and your focus to something. So this blog, you know, you start having 1,000 followers, you have interaction, you feel, okay, maybe I will become an influencer, okay? And there are a lot of successful stories. But to become successful in this world, you need to put everything into it, I believe. So for me, my blog, it will not be, the target is not to become an influencer and live as a blogger, because I already did my test in the past, I told you, and I believe that everyone, if he has a dream and a passion, can reach his target. But sometimes it takes too much, okay? So there is time. If you have time, 10 years to try, okay, you will succeed, I'm sure, everyone will succeed. If you have 2 years, 3 years, think about it, because you have to understand what is the best path for you. And I understood that my best path is keep on doing what I'm doing with my boss and keep my blog as a true passion without overloading with expectation. You know what? Okay.
Well, the truth is, you never know actually where it's gonna end. You know, I mean, your blog
you never know, of course.
So
of course,
you know, people
of
might
course,
start
no, but
reading it.
No, I mean, in the deep of my heart, I hope that it will be successful, my blog, and I can travel more and visit beautiful places. But it's just in the deep of my heart. I'm not overloading. I'm talking personally. Yeah? I'm not overloading these things with expectation, and because my job needs focus. my client need my focus, my total focus.
Exactly. All right, Francesco. Well, thank you so much for joining me on this talk. I really enjoyed listening to the story,
Thanks
and
to
thank you
you,
for
Sarah.
sharing also about your life and your findings. Guys, I'm gonna put the link to Francesco's page so you can follow
Thank
him
you.
and follow the blog posts as well. I think that one really interesting things that kind of we can wrap up with. I liked it when Francesco said about studying successful people. I think this is really what he meant when he started his blog, and I think that even if there is a big mystery around how people really achieve success in architecture, I think it's really worth it to study these people and see exactly how do they communicate, how do they make business decisions. There's a lot of talks actually out there where they talk about setting up systems in their offices as well to actually allow themselves to exit their own businesses one day, and which is a really important thing. At the end of the day, most of us as architects would name our practices by our names. So how do you exit a business that's called with your own name? You can find these things out. I know that Norman Foster had been sharing these things, and many other architects. So perhaps follow the blog of Francesco, as he's breaking down all these success stories. But also keep an eye yourself and study that, because this is where the mystery of you becoming better at what you do sits, is really by not copying but kind of modeling successful people, someone who's already done it ahead of you and has had results. So on that note, I'm gonna say bye to you all. Thank you for joining again this talk, and I'll see you at the next one. Ciao ciao.
Ciao, Sarah. Thanks a lot.